was 12, there was this boy at my school called David. One weekend, he asked me to come to his house for a sleepover. It was a bit unexpected because I didn't know David very well. We had talked a few times before, but we weren't close friends. He had only joined the school the year before, so we hadn't really spent too much time together. I told him I wasn't sure, but he convinced me, so I agreed and asked my mom when I got home from school. She said yes and drove me to his house after school. It was my first time being at David's house, and I was still pretty surprised that he invited me over, but I thought it was nice to be making a new friend. He showed me around his house, which was very nice. He had a big living room with a huge TV and lots of cool video games. We played some Mario Kart and Super Smash Bros. David overall just seemed a little bit strange to me. He had this quirky way of talking and moving, and his room was filled with all sorts of unusual things like comic books and action figures. I didn't really know what exactly it was, but I felt like I just didn't really get along with him. Then it was bedtime. I climbed into my sleeping bag on the floor of David's room. It was a pretty big room for a kid. It took me a long time to fall asleep, but eventually I did. However, a few hours later, I woke up feeling really sweaty. I noticed that my sleeping bag was zipped up all the way, and there was another blanket covering my head. I took off the blankets and felt much cooler right away. I looked around and knew I definitely didn't put that extra blanket on myself. I thought maybe David did it, but I couldn't figure out why. Then I noticed David was awake. I asked him why he put the blanket on my head, but he said he didn't do it. I knew he was lying, but when I accused him again, he got pretty angry at me. His face turned red and he started to raise his voice. I felt a bit scared, so I decided to just try to go back to bed and make it through the rest of the night. I figured I could go back home in the morning and sort things out then. It took me a while, but eventually, I was finally able to get back to sleep. When I woke up, it was morning. I looked around the room, expecting to see David, but he wasn't there. I thought maybe he went to the bathroom or something, so I waited for a few minutes. But then, I really had to pee, so I tried to leave the room, but the door wouldn't open. It seemed like it was locked from the outside. That was it for me. I was really annoyed with how David was treating me, so I called my mom on my phone and asked her to come pick me up. I didn't have a good time at all. By this point, David just seemed really annoyed to me. My mom told me she would come and get me, which made me feel relieved. I knocked several more times and even shouted his name once, but still, there was no response. David's house was pretty big, so I figured I wasn't in any immediate danger, but the whole thing just made me really angry and frustrated. I felt trapped and annoyed at David for not listening. Finally, after what felt like forever, David's mom opened the door to his bedroom. She looked a bit surprised to see me, and then said in a slightly annoyed tone that my mom was here to pick me up. I left without even seeing David. It was Sunday, so I spent the rest of the day chilling at home and playing video games. Later that night, I was in my bedroom when my mom called out to me that one of my friends was there. I walked out and saw David standing at the front door. His expression was tense, like he was upset. I went over to him and he asked me in an angry tone why I left his house so early without even saying goodbye. I explained to him that he had locked me in his bedroom and I didn't know where he went. But he denied it and accused me of being a bad friend. I didn't really care though. I just went back inside and started playing video games again. But about 15 minutes later, I suddenly heard a loud crash coming from my window. It scared me so much, I thought my heart would stop. I looked over and saw glass scattered everywhere. My parents rushed into my room when they heard the glass breaking. I was fine and wasn't near the window. They hurried to the window and saw David running away down the street. My parents called his parents, and I could hear them arguing for a while before they hung up. I'm not sure what happened to David after that, but I never saw him at school again. I live in a really small town where everyone knows each other, and we usually get along fine. We're just a small dot on the map of our state. We're like outcast, hardly noticed by anyone. But I really like living in this small town. The people here are nice and always ready to help. At least, that's what I used to think. But then I realized how unsafe it can be, especially for a 15-year-old girl like me. It was a really hot day, the kind where just breathing feels hard, let alone doing anything active. I had a different idea and decided to have a sleepover with my best friend who was already at my place. We packed our things and headed to her house. But just as we were about to leave, we heard the ice cream truck's music. I smiled at my friend and said we could get free ice cream because the owners are friends with my family. When the big white truck came into our little neighborhood, all the kids gathered around it like seagulls flocking for French fries at the beach. They had their coins ready, making a tinkling sound. I waited for the excited kids in front of me to get their ice cream first, before they left. I checked the menu and asked my friend what she wanted. We both made our choices. When I looked up at the man to order, I was about to say his name, but then I realized he was a total stranger. I stared at him in shock with my mouth open, then said where the usual guy and his son were. "They went on vacation and left me in charge. So what do you want, pretty girl?" he said with a very creepy smile. I didn't want to talk much to him, but I also didn't want to be rude. The man looked to be in his 30s, very tan and hadn't shaved for a few days. He was wearing a dirty white tank top, and I couldn't see his pants. "Oh, I just wanted to say hello," I said, and then turned away. My friend was behind me. She asked, "What's the matter?" and walked with me. We just started walking towards her house. I turned to her and explained that the man selling ice cream wasn't the usual one, and the regular guy wasn't on vacation. Also, this guy seemed really creepy, and my gut feeling told me he might be dangerous. I've always trusted my instincts. We just kept walking, chatting about random stuff to kill time. Soon, I heard the ice cream truck's song coming from down the road. I didn't mind picking up the pace despite the hot weather. Then the ice cream truck's song stopped, but I could still hear the engine. It was getting louder slowly. I saw the man passing us from the corner of my eye, going by us slowly and giving us a look. I glanced at him, and then he suddenly sped off, turning left at the intersection. My friend and I felt a bit scared now, so we turned right and walked down a road. On our left was a park that most people call Wharf 5 for some reason. One of our friends was there, so we waved. She smiled and came over to us. We chatted for a while, mainly to take a break and relax. Then she turned to me and asked, "Did you see the ice cream man? He seemed creepy and wouldn't stop staring at me." We told her she could walk with us since her house was on the way. We talked and laughed, trying to forget about the strange guy. Then we heard it again, the ice cream truck song, getting closer. We looked and saw the old truck coming down a private road that branched off from the one we were walking on. We just kept walking and ignored him, thinking he was just doing his job. But suddenly, he stopped when he saw us, his eyes lingering on us for a moment, before he turned left and drove off down the road. Soon enough, we reached our friend's house. She said goodbye and told us to hurry home, We agreed and kept walking as she went inside her house where it was safe. It was getting dark, and we still had a 30-minute walk ahead of us. We kept talking, trying to make things feel better again. But about 20 minutes later, we heard it, the ice cream truck music. It played for a bit, then stopped. The engine roared. We knew he must have been driving fast. We started running as fast as we could and reached our house in just a few minutes. We tried to open the door, but it was locked. There was a note on it saying, "Gone to the store. Be back soon. Spare key in the garage." She ripped the note off, and we ran out back, getting away from the lights of the ice cream truck creeping by. It stopped right outside her house. The big white door opened, and the man got out. He walked up to the door and knocked. When nobody answered, he tried to open the door. He grunted in frustration and then kicked the door before going around to the back. We hid under the porch, crouching down to stay out of sight. He walked up the stairs and banged on the door, shouting, "Open up, I know you're in there." We stayed quiet, and I peeked through the cracks in the boards. I saw he was holding a shotgun, and, believe it or not, he aimed it at the door and shot the lock. He opened the door and went in. We sprinted down the street towards our friend's house. We heard the man yelling, and then we heard the shotgun again. I prayed to God he wasn't aiming at us, and if he was, he must have missed. My heart was pounding faster than ever before, and we just kept running to a nearby neighbor's house. We explained to them, still out of breath and clearly scared. They called the police and locked the doors. We saw the cops drive by the house, and they stopped once to check on us and make sure we were safe. About an hour later, they returned. They said they found a shotgun but couldn't find the man or his truck. My friend's mom returned home and apologized for leaving the house. This happened last year, and now I'm 16 years old. The man whose ice cream truck was stolen never got it back, and the creepy guy was never found. When I turned 8, my mom decided to throw a party for me. She invited her friend over, who brought her kids along. We'll call them Sally, Billy, and Lily. After the party ended, we gathered in the living room for sleepover and put on a horror movie. Anyhow, I got a bit bored, so I suggested we play hide and seek. Surprisingly, everyone else seemed bored too, so they all agreed. We decided to use rock, paper, scissors to choose who would be the seeker. My oldest brother Charlie was chosen to be the seeker. He headed down the hall to the bathroom to start counting. Now let me describe the house layout. When you walk in through the front door, right away you'll spot the stairs on your left. Once you climb those stairs, you'll find yourself facing a hallway. To your right is Justin's room, where we were all gathered to watch the movie. And if you go straight, you'll reach my sister Charlene's room. When you turn left at the stairs, you'll find my room on the right side. And if you turn left again, you'll find my mom's room. Keep going down the hall, and when you turn right, you'll see 3 doors and another set of stairs. Straight ahead is the linen closet, and to the left of it is the stairway. Charlie went to count in the bathroom while the rest of us scattered to hide. I dashed downstairs and thought hiding behind the couch would be clever. Around that time, one of my uncle's friends, Scott, was crashing on the couch, totally wasted. But it didn't bother us much, so we shrugged it off. I remember seeing Lily come downstairs, searching for a hiding spot. And for some reason, she decided to hide with me behind the couch. I didn't think too much about it, because I thought hiding behind the couch was a brilliant idea. Oh, and I forgot to mention, we were playing hide and seek in the dark, which I guess makes the story even more disturbing. Charlie was quick to find everyone, but I stayed hidden behind the couch with Lily. When suddenly, Scott erupted into laughter and pointed up at the ceiling. I think Lily noticed because she put her hand on my shoulder and said, "Don't worry, my friend. You will be fine. I am with you." Her voice sounded strange, like it was coming from far away or something. I turned to look at her and asked what was wrong with her voice, but then I saw her hand. Her hand appeared unusually bony and pale, which struck me as odd. So I glanced towards her, expecting to see her familiar figure, but instead, I witnessed something horrifying. Its eyes, ears, and mouth were massive and seemed out of place on its small, misshapen face. I let out a huge scream, so loud it felt like it echoed through the whole house. Without thinking, I leaped over the couch, desperate to escape from whatever that terrifying thing was. Charlie must have heard me, because he came into the room just in time to see me sprinting back upstairs. The scary thing kept chasing me, until I ran back into Justin's room and slammed the door shut. Everyone returned to the room and told them about what I saw. But according to Lily, she hadn't even gone into the living room at all during that round. Instead, she was with Charlene, hiding in the dining room under the table. Suddenly, Justin started panicking, and then he said for everyone to look at my back. I turned around and looked at my back, and I saw a lot of red on my shirt. Charlie lifted up my shirt and saw 4 large scratch marks across my back. It was strange, because at first, I didn't even feel the blood or scratches on my back. But then it started hurting a lot, and I began to cry. Charlene asked if I still wanted to play hide and seek, but I was way too scared. I told them to go ahead without me. Justin offered to stay with me so I wouldn't be scared again. He was about to take me to the bathroom to clean the cuts, but then he stopped outside the bedroom door. By then, everyone had already found a hiding spot, so when he said someone was peeking out of Charlie's bedroom, it was strange. I walked into the hallway and saw the head slowly ducking back into the room. The head was completely white, almost like it was glowing. Also, the hallway light outside the bathroom was on for some reason, which helped us see it better. According to my brother, it didn't have any facial features. When I saw it, I screamed again and ran back into the room. Once again, everyone rushed back in, asking what happened. This time, Justin told them and asked Charlie if it could have been him. But he said he hadn't even been in his room. Everyone then decided that we'd all stay in one room for the night and keep watching movies until we fell asleep. The only time we left was when my sister took me to the bathroom to clean the blood off my back. It was tough to sleep that night because the scratches hurt so much, but eventually, I managed to doze off. The next morning, my sister took me back to the bathroom to check if my cuts were still bleeding. They weren't. In fact, they had completely disappeared. In the end, I'm so grateful that I no longer live in that house. I moved out before starting 5th grade, and thankfully the house is now empty. I never figured out what that thing was, and honestly, I'm not sure I want to know. I've known Jack for what feels like forever, and we've been best friends since we were kids. Over the years, we've had
I'm optimistic that I could get at least one more, but we'll just have to see, because I was very, very lucky in the last episode. I can't expect that to be... What? 4 notchapels in one chest. I'm optimistic that I could get at least one more.
countless sleepovers at each other's places. Sometimes because my parents were away, or Jack needed help with school, or we just wanted to hang out. There have been so many reasons over the years. Jack and his family got their house when his grandmother passed away a few years ago. It's pretty big for a one-story house, with lots of rooms and extra spaces, like most houses have. When you walk in the front door, there's a long hallway about 20 to 25 feet long. There are doorways leading to other rooms. At the end of the hallway, on the left side, there's a room we call the den. It's a pretty big living room connected to a dining area and kitchen. On the right side of the hallway, there's a door that goes to a guest room, but now it's used for storage. Jack has lived in that house for a long time, and he's told me about some strange things he's seen and felt there, feeling like someone is watching him and hearing weird noises. I remember one time when we were all at Jack's mom's office across the street. It was a busy day, but I really needed to use the bathroom, so I asked Jack's mom if I could. She kindly handed me the keys to their house, which was just across the street. I have to admit, I was a bit of a nervous kid, easily scared by things. So when she told me I had to go to their house alone, I wasn't very happy about it. As far as I can remember, I was using the bathroom in their house all by myself, when suddenly, the fan in the bathroom turned on by itself. I hurried to finish up and got out of there as fast as I could. Then, a few years later in 2014, I went to his house a lot, mostly hoping to see more strange things happen. And from that year until late 2015, I had seen enough strange things to make me hesitate about going back to that house. Let's start around mid-2014. Jack and I were 12, so of course we were into doing some silly stuff. We'd usually stay up late if we got any sleep at all, even after his mom told us to go to bed. We usually slept in the den, because the recliners there were comfier than any of the beds in the house. Our routine was pretty much the same every time. Jack would fall asleep, and I'd stay restless all night, until I eventually passed out. The recliners were against the wall, so you could see the rest of the den and the dining area. When everything is pitch black, it's easy to feel scared, especially when you can see the kitchen leading to another room. That room was full of old, creepy dolls they used as storage. I remember lying there one time, thinking about something I can't remember now, trying to fall asleep. I was just a few feet away from Jack, and he was already asleep. I started feeling a slight breeze and a cold gust of air. I pulled the blankets over me, thinking it was just a draft. But then, I saw something move out of the corner of my eye, and I heard a faint whisper that sounded like it was right next to me. I didn't sleep much that night. Things like that kept happening afterward. I started to get used to it, but one thing that really scared both me and my friend was the night the door kept opening and closing. This happened around early 2015. Jack and I were just playing Halo 4 when we decided to go to the kitchen and get some sodas. On our way out, we closed the door behind us, but when we returned later, the door was wide open. We didn't think much of it, and went inside to keep playing on his Xbox 360 for a couple more hours. Eventually, we decided it was getting late and time to go to bed. We turned off the games and went straight to bed. His bed was pretty big, so we both slept at different ends. About 30 minutes passed, and Jack was already asleep as usual. I was just about to drift off when I heard a faint creaking noise. I looked up and saw that his door was wide open, just like before. Since I really didn't like being able to see down his hallway, which felt like a dark hole in the house, I got up to close the door. But about 10 minutes later, I heard the door open again. I was really scared by then. For the rest of the night, all I could hear was that door creaking back and forth. No surprise, I called my mom to pick me up early the next morning. I wasn't risking anything more. From my experiences, I've learned not to mess with the paranormal. Even if you're curious, it can give you nightmares for years. I've figured this out, and I hope you do too.
This was not even a month ago, so all the small details are still fresh in my mind. I have been using dating apps on and off for years. I think Tinder sucks along with its customer service, and I was never a fan of Hinge or OkCupid. I mainly use Bumble. In my Bumble bio, I have my height, which is 4'11". I make a joke about being short, and then I have my Instagram and Snap at the bottom. Because of that, I get a decent amount of random follow requests on Instagram. Half the time I don't follow them back. I also get a lot of random people adding me on Snap, probably more on there than on Instagram. I usually only add them back if I recognize their name from a recent conversation on Bumble, or if their Bitmoji looks pretty normal. I know, that sounds weird. I deal with a lot of stupid, disgusting boys on Bumble, but it's not as bad as Tinder. Still, I'll often have the typical douche frat boy asking if I do hookups or sending any kind of provocative messages. Usually when that happens, I'll mess with them a little bit and then unmatch them. This one time, I guess 3, almost 4 weeks ago, I matched this actually pretty attractive guy. He sent some pickup line that was kinda creative and got my attention. Pretty soon he asked for my Snap. Then seconds later he added me after noticing I had my Snap in my bio anyway. So I added him back because why not? He started messaging me on Snap. I screenshotted the first 2 pics on his Bumble profile and sent it to my girlfriends, mentioning how attractive he is. My friend Gianna replied right away saying it's a catfish. She matched it too. So I decided I'd mess with them a little bit. The things he was messaging me on Snap were slowly progressing to be more sexual. So I started saying the most unattractive things possible, and they started getting noticeably salty. I said I would be down to come over if they sent me a selfie. He didn't send a selfie, of course. He just replied with a message asking what my address is. I didn't reply at first, asking my girls what I should do next. But then I got a notification that the guy screenshotted my Snapchat profile. I immediately blocked him and remembered I had my location on the Snap map as public. The problem is the houses in my area are spaced out enough where he could easily identify which house I was in. I panicked, asking my girlfriends what to do. They tried to calm me down, assuring me there was no chance he'd come to my house. They did a good job because they made me realize how ridiculous him coming to my house sounded. I was watching New Girl on Netflix. The doorbell suddenly rang. I paused the show, and I felt my heart jump into my throat. I was home alone, not expecting my parents or siblings, and it was past 10. I turned off my bedroom light and TV screen. I wanted total darkness to give the illusion no one was home. I suddenly got a notification that someone added me on Snap. The username was "It's me, add me back." I blocked the account immediately. 2 minutes later, another account added me on Snap. This one, the username was "I'm outside your house." I screenshotted that and sent it to my friends and family, now in tears. I blocked it as well. There was a long pause now. I hoped maybe he had given up. During that time, I was texting friends and family, but ignoring all their phone calls because I was so paranoid that I'd be heard from outside. Finally, I got another dreaded notification from Snap, saying someone added me. This time the username said, "I'm looking right at you." I turned to the window naturally. I wish I hadn't. I wish I'd just ran out of the room and called 911. But I looked and saw him looking into my room, this disgusting, smiling man. I'm sure my face turned completely ghostly white as I looked at him. I ran out of the entire house, screaming at the top of my lungs down the street. 2 neighbors came outside in response, and I basically ran into one of their arms crying for help. The neighbor called the police for me, but the man was not found in or around the house. I somehow had to gather the courage to go back into that house and stay there for the night. I locked myself in my parents' room since it's the only bedroom upstairs with a lock, and I prayed I'd be able to fall asleep. I lay awake for seemingly hours though, and eventually I knew for a fact I heard something outside the door, like tiny, soft footsteps causing ever so slight cracks in the wood. I sat up and stared at the bottom of the door, dreading the lights outside turning on or someone trying to open the door. I grabbed my cell phone and dialed 911. I immediately said to the operator in a quiet whisper that someone was inside my house and I was alone. But maybe I didn't say it quietly enough, because footsteps on the other side of the door confirmed that I was right. I wasn't just hearing things. The footsteps walked away from the door quickly. I heard them go down the stairs, and eventually I heard the front storm door slam shut. Cops arrived shortly. The same cops had returned. This time they wouldn't allow me to sleep there the rest of the night. I called my friend Gianna, who was still awake, and she said I could come sleep over for the rest of the weekend. The police escorted me there after I locked up my house. I'm grateful I didn't fall asleep that night, as I wouldn't have heard those tiny footsteps outside my room, and I might not have called the cops in time. I hardly use Snap. I find it to be an immature form of communication. I only have one so I can receive snaps from friends and occasionally send people snaps while I'm on vacation somewhere or doing something fun. I do not view Snapchat as a viable replacement for simply texting someone. That being said, when this girl Kate that I hadn't heard from in months, who I was kind of into, one night randomly snapped me, my face lit up a bit. She snapped me a picture in a dark room, presumably her bedroom, saying, "What are you doing?" I replied with an awkward selfie, saying watching Friends, made more awkward with the obnoxiously bright flash from my phone. Another reason I hate Snapchat, because I look terrible in selfies. Expecting her to run away after my selfie, she actually snapped back. I could barely make out part of her face. It was 90% black wherever she was, with a hint of red glow. She said in the snap to come to her place. I was done with the stupid selfies, so I just messaged her back asking where. She sent an address. It was 10 minutes away. I was bored, so why not? I got in my Chevy and started following towards the address. It wasn't that far. I was there quicker than expected, but I'm also a speedy driver. The address was of a house at the edge of the same town I live in. Since I have her number, I just texted her, but with my car idling and her not answering right away, I decided to just call her. The call was answered, but she didn't say anything on the other end. In fact, all I heard was garbled background noise, likely because the phone was answered by accident. I said hello a few times, hoping maybe she'd hear me in her back pocket or wherever her phone might have been. I listened for a little while, and eventually I started hearing a man's voice in the background. I screamed hello 2 more times into the phone, and then I distinctly heard in a girl's scream, "Help me," before the call was hung up. I didn't know what to make of all of that. I texted her one more time, "What's going on?" Minutes later, I got a text back saying, "Come in, I just opened the front door." I looked at the house, and sure enough, the front door was left open now. At the same time, I got another snap from Kate. I opened it immediately. It was a picture of her legs in a dark room. She was wearing ripped jeans and it looked like she was sitting on the floor. Something wasn't right here. I wasn't going in that house. I called 911 and reported a possible kidnapping situation. In the meantime, while waiting for the cops, I texted back the number, saying 1 second, I'm on a phone call, then I'll come right in. But there was no answer. In fact, the next time I looked at the front door of the house, it was closed now. I was worried that what I was imagining was coming true. A cop car eventually pulled up behind my car, and I pointed them at the house. Another cop car pulled up quickly across the street, and 2 more cops got out. A total of 4 cops were knocking at the front door. A man opened the door, and they identified that they received a reported kidnapping in the house. One of the police officers actually let himself into the house past the man. The other 2 followed, while one stood with me by the front porch. Not even 30 seconds later, one of the cops yelled at the other 2 to get him in cuffs, and then a girl's cries for help soon became apparent from the basement. I was in absolute shock when the girl I recognized as Kate was being escorted out of the house in tears. She was a wreck. She looked like she had just experienced a life-changing trauma. I can't even imagine. This wasn't even her house. This was apparently the man's house. But the girl's aunt didn't live too far, so she was brought there. Obviously, the man was brought to jail, and I'm sure he's now in prison. That Kate girl really didn't seem to want to talk to me too much beyond thanking me for saving her life a bunch of times. I'm not mad about it, though. I understand. Experiencing whatever she went through in that basement is probably something no one wants to think about.
Greetings. My name is Terry Carnation of the podcast Dark Air with Terry Carnation, reading a story for the aptly named Mr. Nightmare. I am an 18-year-old guy and a freshman in college. I go to school in my hometown so that for my first year I can live with my parents and save money on student housing. I go to Montana State University in Billings, the state's largest city. And no, we don't ride horses to school. We have cars. In school, I still knew and hung out with most of my high school friends that decided to stay in town for school as well. But in my calculus class, I didn't know anyone. I am pretty outgoing and can easily start a conversation with a stranger, but I strangely found it hard to make friends in that class. Eventually, I just gave up and went to class to learn rather than make friends. About 2 weeks into school, this guy I hadn't seen in class before started to sit near me. He would always come in around 10 minutes late and would sit as close to me as possible. It weirded me out, so I would sit as far from the door as possible to see if he was actually trying to sit near me. I observed that he would enter class late and walk past at least 10 open chairs just to sit beside, in front of, or behind me.
Are you the kind of person who knows things? Things like you can get a domain from Squarespace, not just a website? Well, now you are that person, because now you definitely know you can get a domain from Squarespace. Something like whisperingbloom.com for your silent...
He had this creepy vibe. His hair was always messed up and greasier than a McDonald's burger. His clothes were ripped up and looked ancient, and his hands were always black with dirt. I am a neat freak and always keep myself and my things clean and organized. So just looking at him repulsed me a little bit. He also looked way older than the rest of the class, almost like he was 40. He started to fall behind in class since he never took notes, and he started asking me for help. Even though he looked creepy and gross, he seemed very nice and shy. I felt bad for him and would explain problems to him when he asked me to, but tried to keep it casual and not be overly nice. One day, he asked me for my Snapchat so that he could get help when we weren't in class, since calc was only a Monday, Wednesday, Friday class. After hesitation, I gave him my username. Strangely, he wrote it on his arm in huge letters with a king-sized Sharpie. After class, I was getting in my car to go home and saw that he had already added me and Snapchatted me. I groaned and regretted giving him my username. I got in my car and drove the 20 minutes home. By the time I arrived, I had forgotten about it and went about my day. I should mention now, a girl's name added me on Snapchat on this day too, so I added her back, even though I didn't know who it was. Later that night, I got another Snapchat from him. I opened it. The first one from earlier that day was of his arm with my username on it. The caption had a ton of blushing faces on it, more than I could care to count. The second was a shirtless picture of him in a bathroom mirror, but it looked like a gas station bathroom. It said, "The jeans you wore today were so tight around you, and I couldn't stop staring." I was immediately weirded out and considered blocking him. I thought better of it, though, and wanted to avoid an awkward situation in the next class we had together. I didn't reply to him and went about my night. I had a few friends over and left my phone sitting on the couch, and one of my friends picked it up and said, "Dude, who's this Jefferson guy? He sent you like 20 snaps." I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my notifications. I clicked on one, and it brought me to the chat section of Snapchat. The messages started off with him asking why I never replied, and got increasingly more angry and aggressive as they went down. Then a picture popped up, and I opened it. It was of my front door, and it read, "Come out right now," in all caps, with about 100 exclamation points. I suddenly remembered I had my location on for Snap Maps, and he had tracked me to my house. I immediately screenshotted the picture and the messages. One of my friends recommended calling the police, but I wasn't worried since I didn't think he could get in. Flash forward 2 weeks, and I hadn't seen the guy since. One night I was watching people's stories and came across Jefferson again. I was horrified because I thought I blocked him. I looked at the username and saw that it was the username that I thought was a girl adding me all that time ago. He had made a fake Snapchat, knowing I would probably end up blocking him. His story was even creepier, though. It was a picture of me walking with my friends in a parking lot earlier that day. I was pissed now. I messaged him and asked why he wouldn't just leave me alone, and why he couldn't realize I didn't want to be his friend. He only replied with more pictures of me taken over the last couple of weeks. Me walking, me driving, me at the movies with my friends, me at a restaurant downtown with a girl I liked. I was so completely creeped out that I blocked him again. I wish I had saved the pictures. But after I press charges for stalking, I imagine the photos will be subpoenaed for evidence. I have since turned off my location for Snapchat, and I only add back people that I know. Thank you, Mr. Nightmare, for that nightmarish story. Thank you, Tristan, for that indelible nightmare of a story that you've shared with us. Ugh, blood-curdling. Now, if I only knew what Snapchat was. I don't know what that is. Is it a device? I'm not sure. But I can only imagine. One can only imagine. And frankly, I'm most surprised by the fact that someone in Montana is studying calculus. I didn't know they had universities in Montana, let alone courses like calculus. I bet they ride horses to class instead of cars. Oh, Tristan. Stay safe out there, buddy. Stay safe, Tristan, and only add people you know to your chapsnats. Only add friends and not creepy dudes. Full confession, that was me. But I am, however, a little older than 40. So, it was me, Tristan. It was me. This is Terry Carnation. I host the podcast Dark Air with Terry Carnation. New episodes out every Thursday. Follow me on my misadventures as I host a paranormal radio call-in show featuring, well, me, Terry Carnation. Thank you, Mr. Nightmare. Thank you, Tristan. Thank you, listeners everywhere. Remain open to all possibilities. I couldn't resist doing an evil laugh. I love doing evil laughs. Here's another one. All right, that's enough.
We're here in the wing capital of the world to see what local experts think of Purdue Air Fryer Ready crisp.
For anyone living in a house, odds are your house has an attic in it. Perhaps the place in your house you spend the least amount of time in. But do you ever hear sounds coming from up there? Sounds that almost make you wonder if something's up there. Of course, it'll usually be dismissed as house settling noises, because who would ever imagine that someone or something would actually be up in your attic, or God forbid on your roof, right? Well, these videos may make you want to install cameras. Jerome and Ashley Kennedy, a Pittsburgh couple, along with their 10-month-old baby, were living comfortably, unbeknownst to what was going on above their heads in their own home. The row house next door that was being renovated was owned by 73-year-old Robert Havrilla, who's described by the couple as very reclusive and known to keep to himself. Jerome was in bed one night when he heard noises above him in the attic, the kinds of noises that weren't just house noises. He knew somebody was up there. Then he noticed a light shining through a pipe, as if it were searching for a place to look through. So Jerome installed a surveillance camera in his attic, and a day later, caught on tape was many people's worst nightmare. His neighbor Robert in his attic, carrying a power drill, looking into the bedroom. His neighbor had made a removable wall to gain access to their attic. It wasn't just the attic though. Jerome also found perfectly round holes in the common wall between the two row houses. The shapes indicate that Robert the neighbor was drilling holes through the wall. Cops were called, and Robert was charged with stalking and trespassing, which he pled not guilty to. Robert's attorney made a statement that his client had no bad intentions. He claims he was in the attic for maintenance reasons connected to his renovations, not to peep on anyone or do anything malicious. Anybody with half a brain would know this is BS. The many holes drilled in the common wall and through the ceiling in the attic were without a doubt meant to spy on his neighbors. Strangely enough, it appears Robert was aware of the camera that Jerome had placed, as he looks right at it in this frame, so why he continued to do what he did is unknown. This anonymously submitted video to a channel called Handle Bandle starts with a young guy explaining how the dry boxed food that he and his girlfriend had left in the garage was mysteriously torn open and scattered across the floor.
Door open in the front or the back door open, but when we were still moving our food in, we left a lot of our box food here in the garage. And when we came out, I think it was a couple days ago, I think it was a Thursday in the morning, the boxed food, the dry food that we had, it was all torn open and scattered across the garage floor. Since then we sweeped it out and cleaned it up and everything, but something got in here and tore a big hole in the side of some of those boxes. But anyway, with this new camera, hopefully I can catch something on video. Maybe even put it up on YouTube, we'll see.
Obviously, it could have been any number of wild animals. So, in an effort to catch the animal in action the next time it happens, to hopefully help put an end to it, the guy starts to record anytime he hears noises outside. So the following night, the guy and his girlfriend hear some sounds on the roof while watching TV. So he looks out his window with his camera's light on in an effort to see if he can find the source of the sounds.
So we were just laying here watching The Office by the window up here, and we're on the second floor. And I mean, we hear noises out here pretty often, but you can see how high up we are. We hear noises out here, but nothing like what we just heard, so I think it might be worth looking into. I gotta get a flashlight. Can't see anything. I can't really describe exactly what it sounded like, but almost like some kind of a screech.
When the window doesn't provide a good view of what it could be, he decides to go outside for a better view, and this is what he sees.
Alright, let's see. What the fuck is that? What in the fuck? Wait a minute. Hey!
It's half ahead of what looks to be either some kind of creature or perhaps somebody wearing a mask. He goes back inside to gain access to the roof through his window to get a closer look. As he climbs up, he hears a snap, then looks to see the head again, still staring at him, causing him to possibly fall off the roof.
Where the hell did it go? I'm walking around.
No other information is known of this video. Was it some kind of creature? Some people in the comments were saying it could be an owl. Others think it was a person in a mask with malintent, possibly trying to break into the house. And some believe this was footage of a rake. Imagine being home alone at night as a teenager in a big empty house, and imagine that you start hearing noises from up in the attic. That's exactly what happened to 17-year-old Stephen Braun. While playing video games in the living room, Stephen heard thumping sounds from up in the attic. He called his dad, who was at work, and his dad sounded concerned and told him to go upstairs and check on the hot water heater, which is actually in their attic, a very uncommon place to find a water heater. Stephen's dad was worried that something was wrong with the water heater and that the sounds he was hearing were coming from it. So Stephen obliged and proceeded to go up into the attic, but not without recording. As Stephen checked the water heater and saw that it was completely fine, he then appeared to be leaving the attic, and that's when he heard a sound that caught his attention. As Stephen heard something come from inside a large, long box, he took a closer look at it and saw someone's eye peeking out one of the holes. Understandably, the 17-year-old was probably in shock and unable to do anything besides stop recording and run out of the attic. He says he locked himself in his room to call his dad, and his dad simply told him to hang up and call 911. And that's what he did.
So many people.
As Stephen was in his room, he heard the footsteps of someone leaving the attic and then running down the stairs of the house and out the front door. As has clearly happened way too many times before, by the time police showed up, it was way too late to catch the intruder. Oddly enough, nothing was stolen from the attic or the rest of the house, but it's unknown for how long exactly someone was up in the attic, or what they were doing up there. In this video you're about to see, a young couple who just recently moved into their new home started hearing noises from up above in the attic, so the man decides to go up there with a light and camera and check it out. The man looks around for several minutes but doesn't see anything out of the ordinary. As the wife is clearly very distressed and scared, the man maintains a calm, reassuring demeanor about the situation. As the man descends back down the ladder, the woman keeps recording and inadvertently catches something disturbing on video. What appears to be the wrinkled, gray face of an old man, peering down at the couple for a very brief moment with an eerie expression. It quickly disappears back into the darkness above, going undetected by the couple. Some people believe that it may have been a homeless elderly man who was taking refuge in the couple's attic. However, given the small size of the attic, it would be very unlikely for the man not to have spotted a squatter up there. In the early hours of the morning on July 14th, 2011, Josue Silva started hearing noises coming from his roof that he had been hearing the night before as well. This footage is over 10 years old now, and the person who recorded this didn't have much money to afford a better camera, and high-quality cameras weren't as easily available back then. Josue swears that the footage you're about to see is legitimate.
I've been hearing some noises on my roof tonight. Hear that? Hear that? Yesterday I heard the same thing, but I didn't want to come out. The camera wasn't charged. I can hear something up there. Hear that? Hear that? Oh my God. There, gotta climb on this. These are the shingles. Hello? Oh my god.
After seeing this rake-like creature, Hasue falls from the roof from shock. He grabs his rifle and returned to his roof, but the creature was no longer there. The creature seems to be bald with a large round head, but no facial features can be seen. This first photo that you're about to see in a few moments was taken by a viewer named Jane. Jane had met a man named Jeremy off a dating app. She hadn't been on any dating apps since her at-the-time recent breakup, and she thought it was finally fine to get back into the dating scene. After swiping away on some dating app and conversing with a few people, she matched Jeremy, who seemed to be the kind of guy she would feel comfortable with and connect with. Jane describes herself as a good-looking but shy and reserved girl, and she described Jeremy as an above-average looking guy with a buzz cut who was exactly her type. He had a full tattoo sleeve on his left arm and had mostly pictures of himself outdoors. Most notably, his first picture was of him leaning on his pickup truck with his dog in the bed of the truck and the woods in the background. The two struck up a conversation about his dog and then dogs in general, and eventually the conversation segued to local bars that the two would frequent. Jeremy picked up Jane, and the two ended up going to a bar called Lansdowne Street, and in her words, kind of hitting it off. Jeremy dropped off Jane at home, but beforehand he seemed a bit reluctant, wanting their little date to continue, even at one point implying that she should go back to his place with him. She politely rejected him, and that was the end of their first date. The two would text back and forth the next few days, and saw each other again the following Friday, where they went out to get fast food and ice cream. After chatting in Jeremy's car driving around for a bit, he ended up taking them to his house, where he started trying to get her to come into his house. She rejected this request over and over until it got creepy, and then he started getting a bit physical. Jane said she didn't know if he was trying to physically remove her from the car or if it was him trying to make some kind of physical advance on her. Either way, she shoved his arms off of her and left the car, walking quickly down the street. Jeremy called her a few times, but she ignored him and kept walking. She had her older brother Chris come pick her up. Shockingly, after a long back and forth over text, Jeremy cursed Jane out, but then minutes later switched his tone to apologetic and regretful. Jane blocked his number, figuring he was not what he initially seemed and he might be crazy. Now this is when the photo that I mentioned earlier comes into play. That night, Jane was awoken to a sound outside her window. It was the sound of the recycling bin full of glass and cans on the side of the house being kicked. It was late at night, so this was cause for alarm. She got out of the bed to look out her bedroom window. Upon lifting up the blind and looking around outside for just a second, she saw something that made her stomach churn. In this picture that she took, you see Jeremy standing in the darkness with his hood over his head, facing the window. She managed to not scream and be brave enough to take this picture when she saw him out there. Jeremy tried opening the window when he was seen and started yelling Jane's name repeatedly. Jane screamed for her brothers and her dad to help, and by this point Jeremy had taken off. According to Jane, the whole block had to hear his 8-cylinder pickup truck flooring it down the street. Tempted to text Jeremy threats of calling the police, she showed restraint and brought the info to the police the next day and filed for a restraining order using the text and pictures as proof of reason. She sent a photo of the restraining order to Jeremy, which went unresponded to because she never unblocked him. What Jeremy planned to do at Jane's window is not exactly clear, but even if it wasn't to break in and he wanted to talk to her, that wouldn't be okay either. And after the toxic messages he sent her, nobody would assume he's a completely level-headed individual. In fact, those messages, mixed with his sneaking around her house in late hours of the night and coming to her window after being blocked, suggest he might have been a dangerous individual. What you're looking at right now is one of the many dolls made by Anatoly Moskvin, a Russian former journalist and college professor with expert knowledge of cemeteries. As a child, Anatoly began wandering through cemeteries with friends for fun, and as time went on, he developed a fascination for the dead. Decades later, this fascination led to a hobby of collecting dolls. But this hobby hid a macabre obsession that drew upon his particular interests, digging up the dead and making dolls out of their corpses. Yes, the doll you're looking at is actually made out of a dead body. After making his human dolls, he kept them in his home as his companions and possibly lovers, evident by some of the stuff he wrote about his dolls. For example, "I kissed her once, then again, then again." But the really disturbing part of this is that the dolls were in majority made from little girls aged 3 to 12, and he would apply lipstick and makeup to many of their faces. He even marked the birthday of each of his dead victims in his bedroom. His self-proclaimed expertise on cemeteries wasn't a lie, as he was able to desecrate countless graves in his hometown while evading police for years until he was finally caught after the increasing suspicion at the growing number of defiled graves in the area. When police searched his home, they found 26 life-size dolls, or rather mummified corpses, scattered throughout the house. But the police didn't know they were corpses at first, until he openly admitted to it. His parents, who lived in the same flat as him, claimed to know nothing of his activities. His parents and others who had seen the dolls stated that they did not suspect that there were dead bodies inside, but then again, who would? Not even the police suspected the dolls to be bodies at first. His parents said they thought it was just his hobby to make such big dolls and did not see anything wrong with it. During a hearing in which he sought to be released from a psychiatric hospital to care for his elderly mother and live with a new girlfriend, he refused to apologize to his victim's parents. In his mind, he thought he was doing something good, as he stated he felt great sympathy for the dead children and thought that they could be brought back to life by either science or black magic. He even went as far as to shun the parents for leaving their daughters in the cold, whereas he took them into the warmth to be reborn. Anatoly dried the corpses using a combination of salt and baking soda, and then stored the bodies in secure, dry places in and around cemeteries. Once the bodies dried, he carried them to his home, where he used various methods to make the dolls, in an attempt to give the children functional bodies to be used when he eventually discovered a way to bring them back to life, feeling that their physical remains were too decayed and ugly for them to feel comfortable or happy. While some of the parents want Anatoly locked away behind bars for life, it was determined that he suffered a form of paranoid schizophrenia and has since been held in a psychiatric hospital. From his perspective, he may have thought he was saving a bunch of young girls, but from any other perspective, it was a horrific, downright disturbing thing to do. The picture you're looking at right now is of Amy Reeves and her baby sister. The backstory behind this picture isn't as cute and wholesome as one would imagine. On this day, Amy was taking her sister out trick-or-treating for Halloween. Amy lives in the backwoods of Texas. She moved from Houston to a small town closer to Galveston, as she described to be about an hour drive towards the southeast coast. Amy's move from the big city to a very small town was much needed for her, as she was sick of the city life, and settling into a very small home with 2 acres was a nice change of scenery for her. However, she kept noticing something completely eerie from the moment she moved into the house. It had nothing to do with the property or the home, but rather something outside the home. She kept noticing every time she would pull out of her driveway, a car would follow her and go the exact route she was going. She would ignore it and move on with her day at first, but it kept happening every single time that she would leave her house. In one of the neighboring houses, the same vehicle would pull out of their driveway whenever she would pull out of hers. She very soon started to suspect that there were some ill intentions there. However, for a while, she kept ignoring it and still moved on with her day, hoping it would stop eventually. When she was returning home from work one day, something in her gut told her to take a different route home, so she listened to her gut and took a different route. Instead of taking the highway, she took the service road towards the entrance of her little neighborhood. Instead of driving straight through the neighborhood to take a left, she took a slightly sharp right at the entrance and took a 3-minute longer route back home. But even on this detour, she eventually spotted the same vehicle in her rearview mirror. As she started to speed away to try to escape the car, it started flashing her aggressively. Eventually she makes a left turn and the car doesn't seem to follow. She proceeded home, and just as she thought she was safe and the stalker wasn't around, she realized she was wrong. The stalker's car with the brights still on was approaching, the lights becoming brighter as it got closer. By now it was clear the stalker had been following her home, even down her new route. The man pulled into his driveway and just sat there while Amy went into the house. While inside, she looked through the window out at the car, and the man must have taken notice because he started revving his engine. By this point, it was clearly a full-fledged stalker harassment situation, so Amy called the police in hopes to have them go and talk to him for her. When police arrived, she explained the whole situation the best she could, noting multiple times that she just moved in and she doesn't know the man. The police went over to the man's house to talk with him. Meanwhile, Amy went to her restroom, but she was yet to be under the realization that she had left the back door unlocked when she went outside to smoke a cigarette not too long ago. While she was in the bathroom, she heard footsteps walking towards her bedroom. She got up to shut and lock the bathroom door instantly, exposing where she was to the intruder. And seconds later, there was a knock on the wall separating the bathroom and her bedroom.
Are you craving warm, creamy, cheesy comfort this week? Grocery Outlet, your extreme value headquarters, has you.
Even though it was fairly obvious her cover was already blown, she remained as quiet as she could. The thought that maybe it could have been one of the police officers came up in Amy's head, but after one look out the bathroom window, that idea was out the window. Outside, she could see a police officer struggling with what appeared to be damp wood from the half-rotted shed beside the stalker's house. Amy pulled up her pants, getting ready to run to the front door. And that's when she heard it again, an aggressive knock on the other side of the wall from her bedroom. The stalker was inside her bedroom, no doubt. With not many other options other than being a sitting duck, Amy opened the bathroom door and bolted for the front door and outside to try and find an officer. But there were none in sight, not even the one that was struggling with the rotted wood moments earlier, just their empty squad car. After running around looking for the officers, she returned closer to her house where there was a commotion heard from inside, and it sounded as though there was a struggle between an officer and somebody else. Amy re-entered her house to see one of the officers on her bedroom floor in a lot of pain, who looked to be struggling holding his neck. Not bleeding, but bruising as if the man punched him in the throat repeatedly or strangled him. The officer never told Amy exactly what happened because his partner called an ambulance for him. But Amy was notified later that same day that the man who was stalking her was taken into custody for assaulting and fleeing from an officer. Amy never learned why the cop's partner was struggling with the wood outside, or how exactly the one officer knew to check the inside of her house. In all likelihood, by the time the police had arrived, the stalker had already let himself into her house. And when the police didn't get an answer at the stalker's house, one of them returned to Amy's house to find the door ajar, and the rest you could figure out. The picture you saw minutes earlier of Amy and her baby sister was sent to her phone only days after moving in, and it was taken by a passing car without her even knowing it. After this entire stalker incident, it became much clearer who took the picture, though Amy still doesn't know how exactly they could have gotten her phone number. If you ever check your spam folder in your email, there's a chance at one point you received an email with one of your passwords in the title, and inside the email would be threats of leaking your information or worse unless you paid a certain ransom, usually in Bitcoin. This usually happens when a hacker or even often a regular user will likely find this info by merely searching any of the numerous data breach databases available on criminal forums. In March of 2019, a 25-year-old man named Joe Albanese received a similar email to what was just described. It was titled his password that he used for every account that he had. This was obviously a cause for alarm, so he opened it immediately to read the contents of the email. This is what it said. Hey Joe, all you really need to know is that I know your password and other personal information. I won't come after you, I won't harm you, as long as you send me a small amount of money, $5,000 in the form of Bitcoin. We're going to refer to it as a donation for a good cause, not as any kind of blackmail. My Bitcoin address is... If you don't send me the money, bad things may happen. Don't even bother going to the police. This email is untraceable. Joe did some research and learned that these kinds of threatening emails are common scams, and usually nothing will come of them. Still, Joe replied to the email asking, what other personal information of mine do you currently possess? I'd love to know. He sent this as a sort of challenge to the email, not even really expecting a response or for it to even go through. But it did, and he promptly received a response back saying, I know your home address is F. If you go to the police, I will know about it and you will be sorry. This is when worry would really set in with just about anyone, as having a password leaked in a data breach is one thing, but some unknown person having your home address threatening you with it is completely next level. Joe didn't reply to the email for several days, but he also didn't go to the police. He decided to wait it out and see what would happen next, and after 3 days, there was a follow-up email saying, I'm still waiting for the payment. I won't wait much longer. Joe replied this time, saying, I'm not paying you $5,000. If you want to come to my house, you'll get a face full of lead. This was a complete bluff though, as he doesn't actually own a gun, and the hacker likely knew that, because that same night, Joe received a follow-up email containing a picture of his house. It was the side of his parents' house, and zoomed in on his bedroom window upstairs. He didn't want to tell his parents in fear of worrying them, but now that his gun bluff didn't work, he knew he may have to get them or the police involved. He responded one more time saying, I don't have $5,000. I'm broke paying off student loans. The house you sent a picture of is my parents' house. They did nothing wrong. If you need to do this, please do it to someone else. I don't have the money to send you even if I wanted to. There was no response this time, but within an hour, The sound of glass shattering from downstairs traveled throughout the house, and everyone, including his parents, heard it. There was one of their decorative bricks from the front of the house, laying in the dining room among thousands of tiny shards of glass from the broken window. Joe tried to explain the situation as quickly as he could, and while he and his dad took a quick look outside for anyone who could be out there, his mother called the police. Joe showed the police officers the emails and everything, which were forwarded to the police department. A police officer stayed parked outside the Albanese house for a couple hours that night. Joe blocked the email address from sending any further emails, and as far as he knew, he was never contacted again. The police had a hard time tracing back the original source of the email, as it was sent from an untraceable device, likely an iPod Touch or similar device. At some point, everyone imagines being famous in their lives. A lot of people create this image in their head that being in the public eye creates for nothing but a fairy tale life. But that's far from the truth. Being under the spotlight in any capacity comes with a lot of drawbacks, one of which being stalkers and overly obsessed fans. One extreme case of this, an ex-radio host and DJ who was centered in Los Angeles, had a long, seemingly never-ending chain of emails from an obsessed fan. It started around 2005 or 2006 when the DJ started noticing a regular listener, someone who listened to the show every day and would call in on the request line from time to time. At one point, the listener won a prize from the show, and in order to deliver the prize, the DJ requested her email, and that's where things began. In order to be polite and cordial with the girl, he would answer all of her emails, and when Facebook started to become popular, he added her back where she commonly liked and commented on his posts. This went on for a while, until one day the fan professed her love for him. The DJ rejected this advance in the most polite way he could. She seemingly accepted the rejection, and the DJ thought it would be the end of it, but it wasn't. In 2011, she emailed him a link to a blog that she was writing, where she would post about him and their quote-unquote love multiple times per day. She followed him over to a new radio station and was religiously listening to his shows, assigning meaning to the musical playlist. For example, the song Marry Me by Train was popular at the time, and whenever that song would play on his show, she would blog about it actually being a marriage proposal from the DJ. She began saving all his photos from his social media and photos of other women in his life, like friends and girlfriends, and posting them to her blog with extremely hateful words. She'd make posts raging about him being a man whore, followed by another post not even 10 minutes later in a completely different tone, apologetic and soft, implying she may have bipolar tendencies. The DJ did his best to ignore it, even though by this point he was extremely creeped out, but as she again began emailing him, he tried more forcefully this time to get her to stop, but she wouldn't stop. The DJ started sending DMCA requests to her blog host from the photos of his that she had posted. The repeated violations got her blog shut down, but then she started emailing him instead of posting blogs. He made a filter folder so he never would have to see them aside from occasionally peeking at the insanity in the folder from time to time, just out of curiosity. Years went by and he hadn't answered any of her emails after 2 of them when he very adamantly told her to stop all communications and leave him alone. This continued for years, and in total she has sent him over 4,000 emails, all of which he's archived. This is a picture of just a select few of them. The more recent emails had gotten very dark and violent in tone. In one of the most recent ones, she was threatening to find and hurt the DJ and happily go to jail for it. In another one, she listed the specific neighborhood in which he lived, which he worries she may have his address if she already knew what town he lives in. In an effort to stem the flow of information, he deleted all of his social media accounts a while back, but she would still email him pictures he appeared in from his friends who had public profiles, as well as radio station photos that he appeared in. Most disturbingly, she sent the DJ photos of a shrine she had made of him in her home, with framed photos of his social media that she had posted up on the walls, desks, etc. Being a DJ, his appearance schedule must remain public, so she could technically find him working at nightclubs anytime she wants to, and understandably he's freaked out and worried about his safety. After calling multiple attorneys, none seemed very interested in helping him with this matter. Due to his fear of facing the girl in real life or even being in the same room as her, he never went through with filing a restraining order. He also worried that on the off chance she didn't have his home address, the legal process would reveal it to her. To my knowledge, there was never any follow-up with this, and it's not known if the harassment continued or what route the DJ pursued, if any. But this is one of those extreme cases of how a fan's obsession could have a very negative effect on someone's well-being and mental health. In this last one, a viewer who wanted to be referred to as Christian received multiple emails that he wanted me to share in a story video. Christian has a friend named Katie who was out for a job interview. They used to be co-workers, which is how they met. Nothing was out of the ordinary until Christian started to try and contact Katie after her interview was supposed to be done, only to find that his texts weren't delivering and calls were going straight to voicemail. It was very possible that her phone could have been off or she had no cell service, but as hours passed and still nothing was delivering, he started to get concerned. The most likely and obvious possibility was that she lost or broke her phone, but finally, hours later, the text said delivered. However, Kate never replied. That same day, as Christian was checking his email, he saw an email from Katie's old work email. He opened it, and it read, "Hey, I lost my phone and keys. Can you come pick me up? I'm by some old warehouse construction looking building in the parking lot across from a Hyatt place." Christian asked when she last had her phone and if she had any idea how she lost it. She replied, "I have no idea. Just come soon, please. It's cold." The address that she then sent to better help Christian get to her said it was 20 minutes away. But looking at the location of the address on the map, it led to some abandoned-looking warehouse parking lot, evident by the green growing in the parking lot and decaying-looking rooftop. Christian sent another email back, demanding she go to a less sketchy pickup point. She took a few minutes to answer back with, "I'm already sitting on a bench here. I'm comfortable, just please hurry." Christian got in his car and started following the directions to the location he was told to go. But about halfway there, he stopped the car when he had a thought. And that was, how is she using her laptop to email him in the middle of some random parking lot by an abandoned warehouse? While it was maybe possible that there was some free Optimum Wi-Fi nearby or something, it did seem very unlikely. This is where Christian became suspicious of the whole thing, and the fact that she was using her laptop to contact him instead of going to the hotel across the street and calling him just made it seem more suspicious. He tried calling her number a few times, and now it was ringing instead of going to voicemail. On his third try, the phone rang twice and somebody picked up for a second, though most likely on accident. By this point, Christian was suspicious all of Katie's things were stolen. He called Katie's brother to tell him about the situation and ask his opinion. But when he asked first thing, "Have you heard from Katie?" Katie's brother said she had been home for 2 hours, and that her entire backpack and phone were stolen. Christian yelled into the phone that he was being led into some sketchy parking lot at that very moment by someone who was on Katie's email, most likely on her laptop. Christian drove to Katie's house immediately to pick the two of them up, and they called her phone and left a voicemail with all three of them yelling threats of what they'd do if they didn't return the phone and laptop, which probably went unheard if the thief didn't have her passcode. They also sent a number of texts which went unresponded to. After calling the police and requesting assistance in the parking lot, a police car did show up, but the entire parking lot was abandoned as expected, and no further emails were received. Kate's phone was never turned on again. It was likely disposed of. She never got any of her stuff back, but on the bright side, Christian may have avoided being lured into some kind of trap that would have led to him being robbed or harmed. This first one was submitted by viewer Trent Leons, and when this was recorded, he and his family had recently moved into his grandparents' house. The house is in the middle of nowhere, so the family naturally had their guard down. However, one night at 1 in the morning, while most of the family was asleep, Trent got a notification for a ring that there was motion at the front door. A notification for movement wasn't a concern as the family has outdoor cats that are active at night, but there was definitely reason for concern when it said somebody is at your front door. One of the family members grabbed a gun and went to open the front door, and that's where he started to raise his hands and started asking for help.
Help? Can I use a phone to call a cab?
He asked to use a phone, to which the family gave him a cell phone, and with it he tried calling someone, but to no avail.
You probably know Vistaprint for business cards, but did you know we print everything you need to brand your business? We print banners and signs that help you stand out, and must-have merch like tote bags, t-shirts, and hoodies. Right now, new customers can get 20% off with code NEW20, because if you need it, we print it at Vistaprint.com.
No problems, man. You know me. Here. Yep.
He then proceeded to start walking off down the road. As the guy was walking down the road, two of the family members decided to hop in their truck and find out where he was going, and they found him walking down the road and looking like he was going to another house down the road, the nearest one being half a mile away. The two family members decided they didn't want him near their house or any neighboring houses, so they offered he get in the bed of the truck and they drive him into town, and about a couple minutes later, they arrived in town and dropped him off. The whole time he had his hands up and kept looking at the two family members while he backed away from the truck. It could have been assumed that the man was genuinely looking for help and needed to call someone, if it weren't for the fact that other family members reported that the week prior, he was in another neighborhood around the area, allegedly asking for help again, in late hours of the night, going from door to door in dimly lit areas. It's quite possible that he may have been trying to maliciously gain entry into the homes of sympathetic or unsuspecting people. It's unknown if that's the case or if he was ever successful. This one was posted by a Redditor named T-Course, and there aren't as many details on this one, other than it happened in a small suburb late on a rainy night. This was way past solicitation or visiting hours. The homeowner wasn't home at the time and saw the notification the next day, which is when they saw this video footage. From the darkness appears a middle-aged woman with an umbrella, with her mouth gaping wide open. She stands there for about 20 seconds after ringing the bell, the whole time with her mouth hanging eerily wide open, aside from closing it for a couple seconds, showing that her mouth didn't appear to be stuck in this hanging open position. She tries the doorbell or another button one more time before walking away and disappearing into the darkness seconds later. The homeowner says he didn't recognize this woman at all. Some people believe it was some kind of condition the woman was suffering. Whether it was or not, this wouldn't explain why she was ringing a stranger's doorbell in the late hours of the night. Perhaps another encounter that a homeowner was lucky to avoid. This footage was captured as a homeowner was entering her house after just getting home. The woman lives in a suburban town in Illinois.
Como pra fora. Oh, don't move. Don't scare. Don't. Okay.
The woman in the video was unaware of the fact that she was being watched from the distance by two people hiding in the dark, waiting for her to open her front door. As she steps into her house, the two aggressors take their chance to enter the house while the door is still open. The woman screams as she's startled by the unwelcomed visitor behind her. The first of the two teens to enter the house says don't move and don't scream.
Como pra fora. Oh, don't move. Don't scare. Don't.
The rest of what is said between he and the woman is inaudible. However, according to the woman in the video, he demanded her car keys. After handing him her keys, which can be seen in one of the teenager's hands, the two take off towards her car, which they then steal. There was someone else in the house with the woman who was also held at gunpoint alongside her. He also remains nameless. The woman wasn't harmed, thankfully, and one of the two teenage aggressors were found and arrested, 18-year-old Brendan McCrew. The other aggressor has still yet to be identified. This video is a prime example of why you should always be aware of your surroundings before opening your front door.
Meet Max Out. He's a credit wrecker. He doesn't know that using his full line of credit can lower his score. Don't.
This past July in 2021, this disturbing footage caught on a couple's Ring doorbell camera surfaced on the web. In the footage, a tattooed man with a long gray beard holding a plastic bag, apparently talking to himself, approached the front door of the couple's house. The man in the video apparently spotted the unnamed wife inside of the house through the kitchen window. He approached the front door, where he repeatedly started saying, "Are you sure? Are you positive? I just have a few questions for you."
Are you sure? I just rang your doorbell because I have a couple questions for you. Are you sure? I just rang your doorbell because I have a couple questions for you. Are you sure? What? Are you sure? I just rang your doorbell because I have a couple questions for you. Are you sure? Are you positive? Are you sure? I just have a couple questions for you. Are you sure? Are you positive? I just have a couple questions for you. Are you sure? Are you positive? Are you sure? Are you absolutely certain?
The wife said she never responded to the man. She simply hid in her home and called 911. The man was standing there knocking on the glass, repeating the same 3 things over and over to nobody. Her husband, who was not at the home at the time, accessed the intercom system and asked the man who he was as he was walking away. This caused him to come back, look into the camera, and start saying some pretty nasty, disturbing things.
Who are you? What? Yeah? Are you sure? Who are you? Hey, I just had a couple questions. I just wanted to ask you about AB Fuel. Yeah, can you hear me? What I'm looking for is for the girl that's in the house to come out here because I'm going to rape her and kill her. Do you have her open the door? I'm going to rape and kill the girl that's on the other side of this door when she lets me in. I want to rape her and kill her because I have a knife and a gun. Yeah, and I'm going to knock on her door again. All right.
He was saying he wished to rape and kill her and asked if she could open the door multiple times. After one more unsuccessful knock, the man walked away, talking to himself in different voices as he did. Police found and arrested the man the next day after another report of a suspicious man in the area, and he was identified as 40-year-old Christopher Sums, a fugitive from California. This footage was captured in Bristol and shows a man approach and knock on Kathleen Frascarelli's door. That in of itself isn't so disturbing, but it's the fact that it was very late on a Sunday night, and the image she saw on her phone was of a masked person on the other side of the door. However, the fact that it was late on a Sunday night, and that the image she saw on the phone was of a masked person on the other side of the door, is enough to give someone pause. While playing back the video footage, Kathleen, the homeowner, noticed that the masked person tried opening the door at first, but thankfully it was locked. She described the mask as having this grotesque smile that never went away, and still hasn't gone away from her memory. The person knocks and then stands at the door for 15 seconds. Afterwards, the camera catches them pulling their sleeve over their hand, then wiping away their fingerprints from the doorknob they tried to open when they first walked up to the house. The fact that they wiped away their fingerprints already says that they were up to no good, if everything else about this didn't already scream that. Kathleen stated that he had something heavy in his sweatshirt pocket, which she doesn't know what it was. A neighbor who saw the person leaving said he had a bag that he was carrying with him, so God knows what was in there. By the time Kathleen made it downstairs, the person was already in a car parked across the street, which they sped off in. Footage like this is really the scariest because nobody knows how these encounters would have gone down if the doors were opened.
Most people don't know that you can get a domain from Squarespace. Not just a website. But you're not most people, because now you know you can get a domain from Squarespace. Something like Velvet
Years ago, I did a somewhat lighthearted video about the creepiest children's drawings. I made jokes about a lot of them, but a few on that list did seem like they might have had some sinister backstories. Over the years, I've gotten a handful of kids' drawings with backstories emailed to me. Today, I'm going to be compiling a few of those into this video. This was the drawing made by a 6-year-old boy in 2012. The picture was found in his room by his older sister Tracy, who sent this to me, who was 14 at the time, and she showed it to her parents. In the picture is the family around the dinner table, drawn in a typical 6-year-old skill level. The reason Tracy showed it to her family is because she could recognize all the family members at the dinner table, even the family dog and cat. Who she couldn't recognize was the man sitting on the floor kind of behind the table. Tracy said in her emails to me that when she was asking her little brother who that man was, he kept shrugging his shoulders and saying he's not allowed to tell. The man was drawn to be dressed in all black and has reddish-brown curly hair, as you can see. Because of her little brother's refusal to explain who that fifth person in the picture was, she showed it to her parents, explaining that he likely had an imaginary friend or was pretending to be seeing ghosts. After the parents confronted the child at dinner, asking who the man in the picture was, the boy made a pouty face and shrugged his shoulders. He did this anytime they asked, with the most detailed answer from his mouth being, "I'm not allowed to tell." The parents, specifically the dad, weren't fazed by it, as really a 6-year-old could draw anything and create some kind of crazy story in their head behind it. Tracy would be responsible for watching her brother often when their parents weren't home, and one day when she was left in charge of watching him, she heard her brother talking to someone in his room. Upon getting to his room, she learned he was just playing with his toy car set on the floor, talking to most likely himself as he played. Tracy asked if he was talking to anyone. He looked at her and shrugged his shoulders again, pouting his face. Tracy then noticed some candies on the floor of her brother's room, a specific kind of green apple flavored candy that she'd never seen her mother buy before. She asked him where he got this, and he ignored her, going back to playing. Tracy took the candies, and that angered her brother, yelling, "Give them back." She waited until her parents returned home to ask if either of them had bought the unusual candy. Since the boy was only 6 and it was summer break, aka receiving the candies at school wasn't even a possibility, the random candies appearing in the boy's room became a concern. Even as the boy was scolded and pressed by his parents as to where he got the candies from, he still just made his pouty, angry face and ignored them. The boy was grounded by his father until he would answer the question, so he wasn't allowed to leave his room. The family checked the closets in his room, under the bed, even the closets outside of the room. The idea that someone was inside of the house was out the window. On that same night that he was grounded, Tracy sat close to her bedroom door instead of on her bed, so that she would easily hear if and when her brother in the next room would start talking. And sure enough, when he did, which to note was way past her brother's bedtime, she jumped up and ran to his room, opened the door, and saw her little 6-year-old brother standing at his open window talking to a man who looked as though he were about to climb into the room. Tracy screamed for her mom and dad, causing the man at the window to flee, and her brother began to cry. Once Tracy told her parents that a man was talking to her brother through his window, the police were called. The boy still refused to talk at first, but with the police there, he eventually said that his friend told him not to tell anyone about him, or that he couldn't come and play anymore. When asked his friend's name and age, he said he didn't know. When asked what the two of them would do, the boy said he would come with snacks and candies for him and just play with toys. When asked how they met, he said they met in front of the house one day when the man stopped on his bike and gave him some candy. After offering to come back with more candies and snacks, Tracy's brother told him which bedroom window was his, and that's when this started.
Looking for new furniture at huge discounts? Shop Ashley's President's Day sale, where you can shop the season's top styles with presidential deals as low as $349. Living rooms, dining rooms, bedrooms, all at incredible sale prices.
Wawa's $5 Big Breakfast Deal gets you any sizzly, any coffee, and a hash brown for $5. Gotta have a Wawa.
Submitted to me all the way back in 2015. This was sent by a mother of 2 children, a 6-year-old boy and an 8-year-old girl. Almost every night between the hours of 12 and 5 a.m., the boy would come to the parents' bedroom crying that he's scared because someone or something was in his room at the edge of his bed. The boy would claim that every night the person or thing would come out from his closet and move to the same spot at the foot of his bed and just stand there not moving. The first few times the parents would check the boy's bedroom just to make him feel better. The the closet door would always be opened. When questioned why the closet door was always open when it was supposed to be shut, he would claim that it was because he was telling the truth about the thing in his closet. Every time the parents would show their son that the closet was empty, he would go back to sleep. Their 8-year-old daughter never had any similar issues to this. For a few nights, the parents would let him start sleeping in their room on the floor with a blanket. Eventually, though, after this had been going on for too long, the parents decided to humor him one more time and asked him to draw what the thing at the foot of his bed looked like. His drawing sent chills down his parents' spines. In the drawing was some grudge-like figure that seems like it would be enough to give a grown man nightmares, let alone a 6-year-old boy. There also appears to be something at the window, and when questioned about this, the boy said that he sees it at the window sometimes too when it's not at the foot of his bed. The parents' solution to this was moving their son's bed to the spare bedroom across the hall that didn't have any big closets. The mom who submitted this couldn't help but get a little creeped out herself at the drawing, and every time he would come crying to their room in the middle of the night. This third and last one is a little different in that it's a mix of drawings and writing, and there's 3 different pages of it. This was found by the new babysitter of an 11-year-old boy named Rocco in Ottawa, Canada. The babysitter, who I'll refer to as Alyssa, was needed while the parents of Rocco were away for a week. According to Alyssa, Rocco was very quiet and kept to himself most of the time. He would stay in his room for a majority of the day, and would only come out to get food from the fridge or to go downstairs to play video games. Alyssa tried to befriend the child the first day, but eventually gave up after realizing Rocco either didn't like her or was just a very unfriendly, creepy kid in general. Alyssa would spend the majority of her shifts doing schoolwork and watching movies. She knew Rocco had an obsession with guns because of the amount of toy guns he had. They would lay across the house in varying rooms, ranging from Nerf guns to airsoft guns to varying types of toy guns. Alyssa had never been in Rocco's room yet though, but one night when Alyssa was having trouble sleeping, she heard Rocco sneak into her designated bedroom and was just standing by the doorway. She sat up in her bed and asked Rocco if something wrong. Then she just closed the door quickly and she heard him running back to his room. The next day, Alyssa went into Rocco's room for the first time. Rocco wasn't in there and the light was off. This meant he was in the basement playing video games, as those were the only 2 rooms he'd ever be in according to Alyssa. He didn't even seem to seek hanging out with friends. Sprawled out on Rocco's floor were a bunch of papers. The first piece of paper that caught her attention was this drawing of a handgun. It wasn't anything really alarming, it just further demonstrated his fixation on guns. Alyssa dug through the papers though, and found 4 pieces of paper stapled together with 3 different staples. They formed what could best be described as a little storybook. The first page looked to be the cover page, titled The Babysitter. Immediately Alyssa assumed this little book was about her. But not wanting to get caught reading it, she took pictures of each page of the little booklet, as well as a picture of the handgun drawing, and left the room to go read it on her phone elsewhere. These were the pictures she had taken. This was the second page. Rocco wrote on it, "It was a regular day in the house, when Mom and Dad brought over the babysitter for the first time. There's something about her that I hate. I think it's how ugly she is. She's a huge nerd, I don't want her in the house. Not sure why my mom and dad hired her. I think I'm gonna have to kill her." The drawing on the page is what's supposed to be Alyssa sitting on the couch on her phone, and Rocco spying on her through the doorway. This was the next page. It's day 3 and she's still here. Parents think I'm a baby or something that needs an annoying, ugly babysitter that eats all our food and drinks. In this drawing, Rocco appears to be grabbing a kitchen knife while Alyssa's in the fridge. The child's disdain for his babysitter becomes increasingly apparent in a disturbing manner. But the next and last page is by far the worst. It says, "She caught me sneaking into her room. I have to be quieter next time." The picture is quite obviously Rocco holding a knife behind his back while Alyssa lay asleep in her bed. The implications of this picture are beyond transparent. Alyssa returned to Rocco's room while he was still in the basement, and lo and behold found a small kitchen knife on his bedside nightstand. Alyssa sent the pictures of the drawings and knife to Rocco's parents and then called them. At first the parents tried to convince her he must be joking around, but they were apparently easily convinced that Rocco could have monstrous intentions. They had Rocco's grandmother take over that same day. Alyssa left the house never informing the police or any other authorities. She accepted her payment for the 2 weeks that night, and she accepted the parents' apologies, but not without recommending that they take their son to get some serious help.
What I'm about to show you in this video are 3 different sets of texts that become much scarier when you hear the background stories behind them. In this first one, these are texts between a young girl named Emily and her mom. Emily sent me screenshots of these texts along with the background story to go with them. First, to read the texts. Emily says to her mom, "Are you home?" "No, still with your dad, what's up?" "I heard someone come in." "The house? Is Peter home?" "I don't know, I've been in my room." "I don't think so, because he was supposed to work till 12 tonight." "Are you sure you heard the door open then?" "Mom, there's someone in the house." "What? Who is it?" "Mom, I don't know, there's some man walking around downstairs. I'm scared, what do I do?" "Emily, find somewhere to hide right now, I'm calling the police. Lock your door right now and hide somewhere in your room, okay?" "Okay, I'm in the closet." "Okay, good, sweetie. I'm on the phone with the police. Don't make any noise at all. Stay in the closet until you hear the police come inside the house." "Do you still hear them?" "Mom, he's trying to open the door." "Emily, please just be quiet. You're gonna be okay. The police are almost there." "Emily, the police are there. Are you okay?" This was where the texts ended. This was what was going on that night when Emily sent these texts to her mom. She was home alone while her mother was out to dinner with her dad, and her older brother Peter was working late. Nobody was expected to be home except for her at this time, so when she heard the front door closing downstairs, she was immediately alarmed and concerned. She texted her mother asking if she and her dad possibly returned home early, to which her mother shot that down, saying she was still with her father. On the side, sometime between her mom asking Emily if she was sure she heard the front door open and her follow-up question mark, Emily texted her brother Peter as well asking if he was home, and he replied he was still at work. At this point, Emily peeked out her bedroom door down the stairs and saw, in her words, a 30-something-year-old tall man in a hoodie, beanie, and black sweatpants walking around her living room. At this point, she started to freak out and locked her bedroom door as quiet as she could and continued to text her mom. Upon telling her mom some stranger was in the house, the mom suggested Emily hide in the closet while she got on the phone with the police. While sitting in her bedroom closet trying to wait this nightmare out, Emily heard the man fiddling with the doorknob to her bedroom trying to open the door, followed with him trying to forcefully break the door open by the sound of it. This was where Emily stopped replying to her mother, as she was too scared to even move a muscle in fear of being heard, even after the man gave up on the door. Police arrived and entered through the front door, which was unlocked, and they knew to go straight to Emily's closet. It was only then, when the police opened the closet door, that she felt safe to move. The intruder had stolen a number of valuables, but Emily was fortunate enough to have made it through this unharmed. She called her mother while the police were there to let her know she was okay, and the parents returned home shortly thereafter. This is a perfect example of why you should always make sure all the entrances to your house are locked, especially at night or when you're home alone. In this next one, the following texts are between a girl who wishes to remain anonymous, who I'll just refer to as Amanda, a guy named Jake who she met a handful of times through friends, and separate texts among Amanda and her friend Alyssa. It starts with Jake texting Amanda, "Hey," and this is how it goes. "Hey, what are you doing?" "Nothing, what about you?" "Same, want to hang out." "Maybe, what do you want to do?" "I mean, we can't hang here because my parents are home, but what if I came to you? Are your parents home?" "Nope." "So let me come, lol." "When?" "I'm free now if that works for you." "What made you even think to hit me up?" "You're really pretty and I just want to hang out with you." "Okay, I look like a potato right now, so you have to give me some time to get ready." "That's fine, what's your address?" "Word, I'll head over soon." "Wait, no, don't, I need time to get ready." The text between Amanda and Jake left off there, where he apparently left her text on read when she asked him not to come over just yet. At the same time, she went to go text her friend Alyssa about it, as Alyssa's part of the same friend circle as the two of them. Amanda was surprised to be hearing from Jake and texts Alyssa to see her reaction about it. This is how those texts went. "OMG, he randomly hit me up, and he wants to come over. Are you gonna let him?" "I told him yeah, but to let me get ready. He said he's gonna head over soon." "I told him wait, but he left me on scene." "Wait, hang on. I feel like it's weird that he's texting you. I'm gonna call him." "Why? Don't mention me." "I won't, but he's not picking up FaceTime anyway." "I'm calling Jamie. This is weird." "Why is it so weird?" "Because I know he wouldn't just text you like that." Immediately, Alyssa finds it surprising and odd that Jake would text Alyssa, for the sole reason that Jake was apparently on the verge of officially dating someone else. When Alyssa tries to call Jake multiple times but fails, she then resorts to calling Jake's sister Jamie, who is also part of the same friend group. All the while, Amanda is confused as to why Alyssa finds this all so weird. Melissa's last text to Amanda was OMFG, before calling her, revealing that Jamie told her over FaceTime that Jake lost his phone the day before, and his Find My iPhone was disabled. They obviously quickly draw the conclusion that whoever was texting Amanda was not Jake. Jake then got on the phone with Amanda and told her that whoever had his phone was nobody that he knew, because he lost his phone during his morning run. The three didn't know whether it was just a prank or not, until Amanda got a follow-up text from the person who had Jake's phone, saying, "I'm here, I'm at the door." Given that the whole reason this person came over was because Amanda said her parents weren't home, that whoever was on the other side of the door likely meant her harm, and they were aware she was a defenseless girl home alone. Amanda looked through the peephole of her front door, and there was someone in a hood standing on her front porch, looking at the peephole. Amanda sent one final text saying this: "I know this phone was stolen, I called the cops already, they're almost here. You better get out of here and never come back or you'll be sorry. We also have you on video camera, so wave hello." The person read the text right away and didn't respond. The next time she checked through the peephole, the person was gone. Jake was able to get his IMEI number, and since it was being used for illegal activity, police helped track the phone to a man who lived a town over, who was prosecuted accordingly, and in this case, justice was actually served. In this last one, these were the texts received by single mother Marissa Rivera. Marissa was awoken by her phone vibrating on her nightstand at 1 in the morning on a Friday night. On the screen were a bunch of texts from her son John. The text went as follows: "Mom, I need help. I got into a car accident. Can you come pick me up? I think I injured my elbow. The damage is pretty bad. I don't know what to do. Please tell me you're joking. Are you okay? Yes, my elbow just hurts. Where are you? At the intersection of Robeson Street and Humphrey Lane by Longley Supply. Is Kevin with you? No, I'm alone. Okay, just stay there, I'm coming." Marissa started to get ready to go to her son's aid when she remembered he had location sharing on with her. So, wanting to make sure he gave the right location, she checked where her son's iPhone was located. She was taken aback when she saw John's location was at the house, not at this random intersection. She went to John's room, but he wasn't in his bed. So she went and called her other son, Kevin, who was also still out. Kevin picked up his phone, sounding intoxicated, according to Marissa. And when asked if Kevin was with John, he said yes, and John said "Hi, Mom" into the phone, less drunk sounding than Kevin. The two were together and claimed there was no car accident and that John lost his phone. Marissa came to the horrible realization that if her kids were telling the truth, somebody else was in the house with her using John's phone. Marissa left the house with her cell phone and called the police while hiding in her car, reporting a breaking and entering. When police showed up and searched the house, nobody was there. On top of that, John's phone location was updated to down the block, but that was the last known location before it was either turned off or broken. The office window of the house was the most likely entry and exit point since, according to Marissa, it's easily liftable and big enough for most people to fit through. Marissa was having the conversation with her sons while standing in the middle of the house, loud enough for whoever was in the house with her to hear her realization that the car accident never happened, and heard her rushing out of the house. What most likely happened here was somebody who knew John either stole or found his phone, broke into the house through the window, and tried tricking their mom into leaving the house so that they could rob the place while nobody was home. Thankfully, she called her other son and was able to realize it was some kind of setup, and she was able to get the police to the house. The family was never able to find out who was the one who sent the text on John's phone. Perhaps another story illustrating the importance of having a passcode on your phone to prevent a stranger or anybody else from having complete access to it. A Redditor by the name of Jessica shared footage she recorded in the Airbnb she was renting. There wasn't supposed to be anybody else in the rental, and she didn't even meet the owners as the keys were left in the mailbox. Shortly into her stay, she was getting ready to take a shower when she started hearing sounds from inside the walls. She rushed to get her camera and get the sounds on video. This is what she captured. can see, after finding a sealed ventilation duct and pulling the seal off of it, the terrifying voices of people speaking Latin became much clearer and sound as though they were speaking the Trinitarian formula and other religious phrases. Strangely, the voices apparently fell silent abruptly, but that wasn't where the nightmarish experience ended for Jessica. That night, with the bathroom door open and the bathroom light on, a picture was taken of her as she was sleeping, and the person who took the picture was holding a note in front of the camera that said, "It's rude to eavesdrop." This was the security footage recorded one rainy night in Huacho, Brazil. In the recording, a confused-looking woman is seen walking through the street in the rain. And at first this seems relatively normal, nothing too unusual, until the woman seems to slowly disappear as she gets closer to the bottom of the screen, until she vanishes altogether. When zoomed in, you can also see the woman seems scantily dressed for the weather conditions seen in the video. Sure, someone can say it's just a smudge on the screen or perhaps some other digital problem. However, moments later, a motorcycle passes by in the same region in which the woman seemed to vanish, yet it's completely visible. And then the same could be said with the truck as it makes its turn, completely visible. It also appears that the driver of the truck may have been reacting to what he also just witnessed to be a vanishing woman. Whether this was just camera trickery or really a wandering apparition is up to the viewer to decide. This video was captured in Costa Rica on someone's home security camera. At an off hour in the night, out from the woods comes a bizarre, horrifying looking creature. First, one might assume it's just a person doing some kind of crab walk, or if this were Australia, they would just assume it's another spider. But you don't even have to watch too closely to ask why or how the arms and legs would be the same length if this were a person. If it was just a person contorting his or her body, the creature wouldn't appear as long as it does and would most likely have a noticeable lump in its back from them contorting their torso. Also, based on the dog's reactions, this was not the work of CGI, as they were reacting to something that's actually there and cause for alarm. This fourth video was taken from the Japanese YouTube channel Omogotoki Films. Their channel focuses on exploring haunted locations and capturing paranormal events on video. In January of this year, the owners of the channel were contacted by a real estate agent regarding a house he's been having trouble selling, due to the fact that the house used to be owned by a family that mysteriously disappeared in 2013.
僕が前勤めていた不動産屋さんの元先輩、何やら僕らに対してちょっと一度見てほしい物
まあその古い戸建てを会社で買ったんだけど、急に飛び込みできた人で、まあいくらで売りたいか聞くじゃん。でそしたらもう本当破格の
売り主さんが持っていたその土地の上に3人の家族が家を建てて住み始めたらしいんですよね。ただ今から 6-7 年ぐらい前にある日を境にその3人
All of the previous owner's belongings were left in the house, adding to the mystery. The real estate agent refuses to even enter the house as he believes there's a dark entity in the house, and he hopes that they would be able to search the house and find any kind of explanation, as this is what they do for a living. The agent mentions to them to make sure to keep all the doors shut while investigating the house, but doesn't mention why. As the two are exploring this closet, they notice something after reviewing the footage. See if you can find it.
ほら、もう全部開いてるもん。ああ、確かに確かに。すっごい、本当。物がやばい。うん。
If you didn't see it, behind a clothes rack, you can see two bare feet underneath. This isn't the last time they can be seen. As they search a nearby room, the feet can be seen again, this time much closer and visibly barefoot.
Later on in the night, one of the two decided to place a camera in the dark and sit in one room, waiting for something to happen. After about 15 minutes, he decided to investigate other rooms, while still remembering to shut all the doors behind him. As you just saw, there was a face looking in through the door, but as he approaches, it disappears. There's no one outside the door. It could be speculated that the house is haunted by the family that mysteriously disappeared almost a decade ago. This was some alleged sighting of La Llorona. La Llorona is known as a ghost who roams waterfront areas mourning her drowned children. This video was captured in León, Guanajuato, Mexico. The video is of a man running from what resembles La Llorona. In the video, if you slow it down and zoom in, the figure in the distance resembles a woman in a white dress crying and yelling. The man was coming home from a party around 3 o'clock in the morning when he encountered the woman in front of him. As he starts to run in fear, the woman starts shouting at him, not making any sense of what she's saying. The man allegedly died 3 days after the sighting, and the cause of death was ruled a heart attack. This video was recorded in November of 2020, and it's just recently getting noticed. This was the footage captured by Russian YouTuber Dark Ghost. He posts high-quality ghost hunting videos, and this one might be one of his scariest. A woman had written to him about her deceased son who was obsessed with the paranormal and finding out what happens to the human soul after death and the afterlife. One day he told his mother that he discovered a way to contact deceased relatives, and he traveled to the abandoned village where his late grandmother lived. A week later, the mother received a call from the son, saying he was hearing the voices of his grandparents among other entities. This call was the last that was heard of the son, and his body was found on the streets of the village. The cause of death was ruled to be acute heart failure. The mother asked Dark Ghost to visit the grandparents' old house where the son would often visit, and this was some of the footage he captured. Various sounds such as footsteps and knocks can be heard throughout the video, and on multiple occasions, doors and cabinets can be seen swinging open or closed on their own. If you didn't see it, a black shadow can be seen floating across the screen clear as day.
Либо шкаф все грохочет, я не понимаю, либо комод. Опа.
Next, he enters a creepy red room populated with disturbing pictures that the woman's son would collect and bring to the house.
вроде бы как. У меня вообще всего тут такого, как бы, фотографий таких. Пипец. Это просто жесть.
This is definitely one of those houses that an explorer should not go to alone. Based on the events in this video, there may have been someone or something in the house with him, watching him the entire time. Could it be the spirit of the woman's son? Or perhaps a much more hostile entity? Or could it all just be trickery? As usual, that's up for you to decide.
Prepare to think bigger. Gain real-world experience.
This took place back when the first Insidious movie came out. My friend Charlie and I went to see the 10 p.m. screening of it at one of our local movie theaters. The theater we went to went out of business years ago, likely due to the fact that it didn't get enough business. I say that because every time we went there, the theater was completely dead, aside from maybe 3 or 4 other people at most. This night was no exception. Besides Charlie and I, there were 2 other people in the theater, one somewhat larger woman and one scrawny man about 5'7". During the previews before the movie, the man kept getting up and switching seats. It immediately struck us as bizarre. Every time he'd get up, he'd look around the room and even look at Charlie and I for a few seconds every time. Eventually, he walked over to the woman a few seats down from him and started speaking to her in a whisper. She said something back to him that we couldn't hear. Then he said sorry and walked away from her to sit at the last seat in the aisle. He was just 2 aisles down from us. Eventually, the movie started, and the opening scene to the movie was a bit scary. It was followed by this loud, scary violin sound. We noticed the guy 2 aisles down shaking his head, and he muttered something. Then he turned around at us and climbed up to our aisle and sat down 2 seats from me. He asked if it's okay he sat there, and I nodded. He said thank you really loud, and I noticed the woman in front of us turned around to look. Charlie and I looked at each other nervously. As the movie went on, he was quiet after the opening scene, until the next time a scary scene came up. He moved to the seat directly next to me and once again asked if it's okay. I don't know why, but I nodded again. I guess because I recognized he may have had a disability or something. He went quiet again when the scary scene ended, but at the next jump scare, he grabbed a hold of my arm and pressed his head into my shoulder. I shook my arm to get him off and said, "Dude, get off me." He apologized and said he's just really scared. I looked at him and he just scared me. He seemed off, way off. He told me he would stop, and he apologized again. But when another scary scene came up, he grabbed my arm again. This time he started rubbing my arm a little. I told him to stop again. Then Charlie and I got up and walked to a different aisle. The woman in the theater got up and left, I'm guessing because she was uncomfortable. As we were in our new seats, he turned to look at us for a while. We tried our best to ignore it, but it was too much. We got up and started walking out of the theater. He got up as well, asking where we're going, and then he asked if he could take us out for dinner. Charlie said, "Nah man, we're good, thanks," and we walked out. We walked through the empty movie theater hall and heard the door to the room we were just in click open. We turned around and there was the guy, peeking his head out from the door. When he realized we saw him, he went back into the room. Charlie and I walked faster now to the lobby and told the girl at the front desk about the creepy man making everyone uncomfortable. She gave us a refund because the woman before us also complained about him. We then left and started walking to Charlie's house, hitting his vape pen and just talking about how weird and creepy that was. We were somehow able to laugh about it, even though we were also pissed that we just left the movie halfway through. On our walk home, we both stopped when we heard a rustle in a bush about 10 feet from us and a muffled little laugh sound. Charlie pointed to a bush in front of a house, and we could see that man from the theater creepily poking his head out from a bush. He asked, "Where are you guys going?" He said it with this tone that said everything to us, that we needed to run. We sprinted all the way down the street till I felt like I was gonna throw up. Luckily at that point, Charlie's house was right there. We weren't being followed anymore. He looked weak and probably not fast anyway, but we weren't risking getting shot or stabbed. Something was very off about that man. Maybe he was drugged out, or maybe he belonged in a mental hospital. I'm glad we decided to run. I don't care if anyone judges me, but I like to go to the movie theaters alone. My work schedule is all over the place. I often don't work weeknights. So on a stormy Wednesday night, a night not many other people would be thinking to go drive to a movie theater, I did just that. I always like avoiding crowds in anything I do. That's just how I am. It was 2017. I went to see some low-key movie that probably wasn't at the top of most people's must-see movie lists. I was the only one in the theater, just like I expected. I sat myself right in the center seat of one of the higher-up rows and put my feet up on the seat in front of me. About 20 minutes into the movie, I'd say, I noticed someone a few aisles down. I didn't notice them coming in. The theater was dark because the scene in the movie at the time was in a dark room. They weren't sitting in a seat like a normal person, though. All I saw of them was the top half of their head, peering over one of the seats to be looking in a direction that definitely was not the screen. It was still too dark to be able to tell if they were looking directly at me or not, but when the scene changed to a brighter background, the whole theater got brighter. Bright enough to see they were looking basically at me. But their face was so pale and lifeless looking, and their hair messy and wiry looking. I couldn't even tell if it was a man or a woman. I'm an introvert, or just an awkward person, so I didn't really want to ask if there was something wrong. I viewed that as confrontation. The screen went darker again, and at the same time, the person lowered down behind the chair completely until I couldn't see them anymore. They were completely hidden from my view. I couldn't concentrate on the movie now, though. I was actually very uncomfortable. Actually quite terrified. I didn't get up, though. I stayed put in my seat. Many scenes in the movie passed. I almost forgot about what happened. Almost. Just when I was getting back into the movie, the person's head appeared from behind a seat again. This time much closer, only like 3 rows of seats away from me. I actually let out a holy shit and a loud yell because it genuinely made me jump. Now I was able to see more detail or features in their face. They actually looked lifeless. Their eyes motionless, hung open. But still, I somehow couldn't tell if they were looking directly at me or not. Now I could better see it was a man with long, unkempt hair. I noped the F out of my seat and down the road to the exit. I had to pass the row in which the person was in to get to the exit door. As I passed the row, I looked down it, and while I expected to see the rest of the person's body sitting hunched behind the seats, instead what I saw was something you'd see in a nightmare. There was some guy basically laying on the floor, holding up a severed head perched on a stick. I didn't stick around to see if it was some sick joke or if the head was real or not. I ran for it through the exit door, and I ran out of the back exit of the building to the parking lot. I drove home in a panic, heart racing. That head looked so real. I got home and did some research about possible recent murders or missing people in the area, and I found something. After browsing a list of missing people in the area, I found the picture of a 17-year-old boy named Donald Watkins who had gone missing a month prior. And based on the picture I found, his face could have matched the head I saw in that theater. Of course, that could be my brain trying to connect any similarities. But the hair, the nose, the eyes, they looked like they could actually be a match. The next day, I simply made a call to the theater and told them the story and suggested they check their cameras and see if anything strange came up. I gave them my number to reach me if they needed to, but I never heard from them. I chose to not spend any more of my time on it. I worked at a movie theater in Cobb County, Georgia, called the Regal at Estelle. It was a very relaxed atmosphere because it's a quiet town and a quiet movie theater usually. Some weekends it would be busy, especially for big blockbuster movies. This happened on a slow night. I was working the graveyard shift. The theater was doing a midnight screening for some underground scary movie that no one really cared about. A few people actually paid to go see it. Obviously, this meant I'd have to stay till the movie was over so I could clean and close up. Past midnight, the theater was always basically dead. The phone at the front ticket desk was ringing, so I went from the concession counter to the front desk to answer it. After saying hello twice, some creepy, distant-sounding voice asked me what time we're open till. By distant, I mean I actually felt like he was whispering into the phone, or like his face was 2 feet away from the phone. When I told him the midnight screening ended around 2 a.m., he said, "I'll see you soon." I opened my mouth and went, but I didn't actually know what to say. He hung up. I didn't like the sound of that, "I'll see you soon." I went back to the concession counter to just scroll on Instagram and other time waster apps on my phone. Then the phone rang again. I didn't want to answer it because I somehow knew it would be that guy again. No one calls a movie theater that late. Still, I went to answer it. Like the first time, I didn't get a response till the second hello, and it was the same guy. He said into the phone, "I'm on my way." I replied, "Sir, the movie already started. There's no point in coming now. I won't even be able to give you a ticket this late." He hung up. This had to be a joke. Possibly one of my friends. The voice just didn't sound familiar at all. As the movie was nearing its end, I started vacuuming the lobby and halls, then went to cleaning the bathroom. As I was cleaning the bathroom, someone came in and went to one of the stalls. That meant the movie was likely over, so I stopped cleaning to go back to the counter. People were on their way out, so yes, the movie was over. I waited till everyone was gone, then locked the door. All I had left to do was clean the theater, which wasn't a big job because there were so few people in there. I brought the broom in there and scanned the aisles for trash. There was a little popcorn here and there and some wrappers. It would have been a quick cleanup, but I didn't finish it. I heard this freakish giggle sound. My head jerked to the left to look down the aisles of seats. "Is someone there?" I asked. I hurried out of the theater with the broom and scooper, ready to use the broom as a weapon if needed. And as I was back in the lobby, the phone rang again. It was like perfect timing. I ran to answer it, and without saying anything this time, the voice said, "Why'd you leave the theater?" I hung it up and called the police, asking them to just get here fast. I waited in my car until they arrived, then told them about the calls and the laugh in the theater room. The police asked me to calm down and check the number from which he was calling and see if I recognized it. So I went to the call history on the phone, got the number, and put it into my phone. And it was the number for one of my close friends, Joe Peterson. That explained it. He was just messing with me. The cops laughed about it, and after I assured them I was all right, they left. I didn't want Joe to get in trouble. I went back in the theater room calling for him. I called for him throughout the whole building, but he didn't answer. It seemed he left. I texted him and tried calling him, all ignored. I went home after locking the place up. The next day I went to his house just to talk to him because it seemed he was ignoring me. But he told me he lost his phone, that he thinks it was stolen by someone at the bar. He didn't have Find My iPhone enabled, so he couldn't even track it or disable it. I couldn't sleep for nights, worrying that I was followed home by whoever had his phone. Being one of Joe's female friends, whoever stole his phone must have went through our conversations and gotten enough info to know where I worked. That horrifies me. I requested to my boss to stop doing the late night shifts for that reason. I didn't work there much longer though. If anything else ever happens, I'd update. But it's already been more than a year.
Adobe Creative Cloud is designed to be almost like a playground